To our amazing viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, we'd love to hear, which part of the world are you joining us from? Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Impact. Preston Shea adjusted his rearview mirror, checking the antique compass hanging from it, a gift from his late father, who taught him that true north wasn't just a direction, but a principle. At 42, Preston had built his life on that principle. After 12 years in Army intelligence and another 8 as a crisis management consultant for Fortune 500 companies, he'd retired to Portland to open a Veterans Resource Center. The pay was modest, but the work mattered. His 2015 Honda Civic wasn't much to look at, but it was paid off and reliable, qualities Preston valued. He was stopped at a red light on Morrison Street, mentally reviewing his afternoon schedule when the impact came. The force threw him forward against his seatbelt. His coffee cup exploded across the dashboard. Behind him, a black Maserati Quattroporte had rear-ended him at what must have been 20 miles per hour. Preston took a breath, checking himself for injuries. Nothing serious, just whiplash beginning to set in. He unbuckled and stepped out. The Maserati's driver's door opened. A woman in her mid-30s emerged, designer sunglasses covering half her face, phone pressed to her ear. Her blonde hair was pulled back severely, and her white pantsuit probably cost more than Preston's monthly rent. No. Felicity, I'm still coming to lunch, she said into her phone, not even glancing at Preston. Some idiot stopped short in front of me. Preston's jaw tightened. Excuse me, ma'am. You just hit my car. She held up one finger without looking at him, continuing her conversation. I know, right? Probably some Uber driver who doesn't know how to. Ma'am. Preston's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. We need to exchange insurance information. She finally looked at him, her eyes scanning his work jeans and Veterans Center polo shirt with undisguised contempt. I'm on the phone, and I'm standing next to my damaged vehicle. Hang up. Her eyes narrowed. She said something quick into the phone and ended the call. Do you know who I am? Someone who just committed a traffic violation. She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. I'm Maureen Wilkerson. My husband is Lloyd Wilkerson. He owns half the commercial real estate in this city, 3 tech companies, and probably the building where you work. She pulled out her phone. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get back in that piece of junk and drive away, and you're going to forget this ever happened. Preston pulled out his own phone and started taking photos of the damage. Her crumpled front bumper, his crushed rear end, the skid marks, her license plate. What's actually going to happen is you're going to give me your insurance information, or I'm calling the police. You're calling the police? Her laugh was sharper now. You really are stupid. She got back in her Maserati. What are you doing? Leaving. Sue me if you don't like it. Preston moved to stand behind her car, still recording. That's a hit and run. That's a crime. Out of my way. I'm not moving. She revved her engine. For a moment, Preston thought she might actually run him over. Then she threw the car in reverse, swerving around him with inches to spare, and sped off. Preston stood there, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He'd faced down insurgents in Fallujah, negotiated with hostile corporate boards, stared down men with guns. But the casual cruelty in Maureen Wilkerson's eyes was something different, the absolute certainty that rules didn't apply to her. He looked down at his phone. He had everything on video, her license plate, her face, her admission that she was leaving the scene. But as he watched her Maserati disappear around the corner, he knew the real question wasn't whether he had evidence. The question was whether evidence mattered when your opponent owned the system. Chapter 2. The Message. 3 hours later, Preston sat in his small office at the Veterans Center, icing his neck and filling out a police report online. His car was at a body shop, $3, $800 in damage, which would max out his deductible. The officer he'd spoken to had been sympathetic but realistic. Lloyd Wilkerson's wife. Officer Vernon McGraw had said, shaking his head. Look, file the report. Document everything. But he'd trailed off, the unspoken truth hanging between them. Preston's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text message made his blood run cold. I heard you filed a police report. That's cute. My husband owns every lawyer in this city. Sue me. Actually, please do. I could use the entertainment. Another message followed immediately. P.S. I found your Veterans Center online. Such a sweet little charity. Would be a shame if your building's lease wasn't renewed. Oh wait, my husband owns that building too. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Preston stared at the messages. She wasn't just rich and cruel. She was stupid enough to threaten him in writing. He'd seen people like her before, people so insulated by wealth and power that they'd forgotten basic self-preservation. They'd forgotten that everyone had vulnerabilities. He saved the screenshots, backed them up to 3 different cloud services, and sent copies to his personal email. Then he pulled up his laptop and started researching. Lloyd Wilkerson, 47. Self-made billionaire. Started with a small property management company at 23, built it into an empire. Owned Wilkerson Properties, Wilkerson Tech Ventures, and had his fingers in a dozen other pies. Married to Maureen for 8 years. No children. But it was the photo that caught Preston's attention. Lloyd at a charity gala, arm around his wife, both of them smiling for the camera. Lloyd's smile reached his eyes. Maureen's didn't. Preston had spent years reading people, understanding what motivated them. Lloyd Wilkerson hadn't built his empire by being stupid or cruel. The articles described him as shrewd but fair, demanding but generous with employees who performed. He'd started from nothing. Father was a construction worker, mother a schoolteacher. Maureen, on the other hand, came from old money. The Stark family, Connecticut blue bloods who'd lost most of their fortune in the 2008 crash. She'd married Lloyd 6 months after they met. Preston leaned back in his chair, thinking. Then he typed a reply. You have 30 minutes to apologize. The response came in seconds. Face with tears of joy, 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 face with tears of joy. What are you going to do? You're nobody. Preston set a timer on his phone for 30 minutes and opened a new browser window. He had work to do. 23 minutes later, his phone rang. Unknown number. But Preston knew who it was before he answered. Who the hell are you? Lloyd Wilkerson's voice was ragged, panicked. Please, whatever you're doing, stop it now. Preston let the silence stretch for 3 seconds, long enough to establish control. Mr. Wilkerson, I'm Preston Shea. Your wife hit my car this morning, committed a hit and run, and then threatened me and my business. I asked her to apologize. She declined. I don't care about any of that. Lloyd's voice cracked. How did you? What are you? I gave her 30 minutes. She used that time to mock me. I used it more productively. Listen to me very carefully. I will pay for your car. I will pay you $1 million. $2 million. Just stop what you're doing. Right now. What exactly do you think I'm doing, Mr. Wilkerson? I'm watching. Jesus Christ. I'm watching my entire security system broadcast live on the internet. My home security cameras. My office cameras. The cameras in my... He stopped. How is this possible? Preston smiled. You use Sentinel security systems for your properties. Excellent choice. Very expensive, very exclusive. They were also one of my clients back when I worked crisis management. I helped them patch a vulnerability in their system 2 years ago. Most of their clients updated their firmware. You didn't. You hacked my security system? I accessed publicly available feeds that you failed to properly secure. Nothing illegal about that, Mr. Wilkerson. Unlike, say, hit and run. Or criminal threats. What do you want? I want an apology from your wife. In person. Tonight. Done. She'll be there in an hour. Where are you? Not to me, Mr. Wilkerson. To someone who actually deserves it. Chapter 3. The Chessboard. Lloyd Wilkerson arrived at the Veterans Center 45 minutes later, alone. He was shorter than Preston expected, maybe 5'9", with the compact build of someone who worked out regularly but not obsessively. His gray suit was immaculate, but his eyes were wild. Preston met him in the parking lot. Where's your wife? She's at home. Under sedation. She had a panic attack when I told her what was happening. Lloyd's voice was steadier now, but Preston could see the calculation behind his eyes. How did you know about the passwords? You mean your passwords? Or hers? Lloyd's face went pale. Both. Your wife uses Stark 2016 for everything. The year she married you. Your passwords are better, but you keep them in a notes app on your phone, which connects to the same cloud service as your security system. Preston pulled out his phone and held up a screenshot. Would you like me to read them out loud, or should we go inside and talk like adults? Lloyd stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he started to laugh. It was the laugh of a man who'd just recognized a worthy opponent. You magnificent bastard, Lloyd said. You didn't just hack my security. You went through our entire digital life in 23 minutes. 22, actually. I spent 1 minute deciding whether to care about the consequences. And And I decided that I've spent my whole life playing by rules that people like your wife ignore. I'm tired of it. Lloyd nodded slowly. What happens now? You release everything? Ruin me. That depends. Tell me about your wife, Mr. Wilkerson. The truth. Why? Because in the last 3 hours, I've learned a lot about you. Self-made success story. You treat your employees well, above market wages, excellent benefits. You're on the board of 3 children's charities. Your people respect you. Preston paused. But your wife? She's been photographed being escorted out of 4 different restaurants for abusing staff. She's named in 3 pending lawsuits from service workers she assaulted. And she drives a $180,000 car like it's a weapon. Lloyd's shoulders sagged. She wasn't always like this. What changed? I did. I made more money. The more I made, the worse she got. It's like the wealth revealed who she really was. He looked up at Preston. I've been thinking about divorce for 2 years. But her family's connected. Old money, old grudges. Her uncle is Senator Stark. Her cousin is a federal judge. She's made it clear that if I leave, she'll destroy me. How? Lloyd hesitated. Then, we signed a prenup, but I was young and stupid and in love. There are clauses. Infidelity clauses that favor her, even though I've never cheated. Morality clauses that her lawyers could twist. She's been building a case for years, staging situations, collecting evidence of things that never happened. I'm not trapped by her wealth, Mr. Shea. I'm trapped by her malice. Preston studied him. Everything in Lloyd's body language suggested he was telling the truth. Show me. Lloyd pulled out his phone and opened a folder. Photos, timestamps, metadata. Maureen with her arm around Lloyd's business partner at an angle that looked intimate. The full photo showed 12 other people at a company dinner. Maureen's tears and bruises, with a date stamp from a night Lloyd was in Seattle for a conference. His GPS and flight records proved it, but she'd filed a police report anyway, then withdrawn it out of love. She's been building leverage, Preston said quietly, in case you ever try to leave. For 2 years. Maybe longer. Lloyd's voice was hollow. I'm worth $2.3 billion, Mr. Shea. I employ 4,000 people. I can buy almost anything, but I can't buy my way out of my own marriage. Preston walked to the window, looking out at the center's parking lot. 3 cars sat there, an old Camry, a beat-up truck, and his Honda Civic with its crumpled rear end. Mr. Wilkerson, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to think very carefully before you answer. All right. If your wife disappeared, not died, just vanished from your life completely, in a way that couldn't be traced back to you, would you want that? Lloyd's reflection in the window went very still. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking a hypothetical question. Why? Preston turned to face him. Because I spent 12 years in Army intelligence, Mr. Wilkerson. I know how to make problems disappear. I know how to find pressure points and exploit them. I know how to turn people's own weapons against them. He paused. And in 22 minutes of looking at your wife's digital footprint, I found 17 different ways to destroy her life so completely that she'd spend the next decade just trying to stay out of prison. Lloyd's eyes widened. You're serious. Your wife threatened to destroy my Veterans Center, the only thing I've built since I left the service. She threatened the people who depend on this place for help, for community, for hope. She did this because I had the audacity to expect basic human decency from her. Preston's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Yes, Mr. Wilkerson. I'm very serious. And what do you want from me? Information, access, and a promise that when this is over, you'll make sure my people are protected. Lloyd was quiet for a long moment. Then, what's your plan? Preston smiled. Your wife believes she's untouchable because she's weaponized her privilege. She thinks money and connections make her invincible. I'm going to show her that the greatest vulnerability isn't what you don't have. It's what you can't afford to lose. That's not an answer. No, Preston agreed. But it's the only one you're getting until I know I can trust you. Lloyd studied him for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and started typing. I'm sending you access codes to our household accounts, security systems, and cloud storage. Everything you need to dig as deep as you want. Why? Because for 2 years, I've been a prisoner in my own life. Because my wife is a monster, and I've been enabling her out of fear and cowardice. Lloyd met Preston's eyes. And because I just watched a man with nothing stand up to her while I, with everything, cowered. That ends now. Preston took out his own phone and watched as the access codes came through. I'll need 3 weeks. maybe 4. What happens in 3 weeks? Justice, Mr. Wilkerson. Preston's smile was cold, the kind that actually sticks. Chapter 4, The Foundation. Preston spent the next week living in the Veterans Center's back office, sleeping 4 hours a night, surviving on coffee and purpose. He'd assembled a team without them knowing they were a team. First was Troy Jacobs, an old Army buddy who now worked in digital forensics for the Portland Police Department. Troy owed Preston his life, literally. Fallujah, 2009, an IED that Preston had spotted 2 seconds before Troy would have stepped on it. You're asking me to look into Maureen Wilkerson? Troy whistled low. Man, that's a hornet's nest. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. Just creative interpretations of public records requests. Troy grinned. I hate that woman. She parked in a handicapped spot at my daughter's school and called my wife trailer trash when she was asked to move. What do you need? Second was Lori Russell, a journalist who'd won a Pulitzer for exposing corruption in city government. Preston had fed her sources for that story back in his consulting days. Maureen Wilkerson, Lori said when they met at a coffee shop. You know she sued me for libel 2 years ago? I know. The case was thrown out because everything you wrote was true. She still cost me $40,000 in legal fees. Lori's eyes were sharp. What are you offering? The story of the decade. But it has to be airtight. No room for her lawyers to maneuver. Give me something to work with. Preston slid a folder across the table. Start with the hit and run. Then look at the pattern. 3 lawsuits from service workers, all settled with NDAs. I'm betting there are more who never filed. Third was Frederick Lang, Lloyd's head of security. Lloyd had introduced them at a tense meeting in his office. Frederick's worked for me for 8 years, Lloyd had said. He's loyal to me, not my wife. Show him what you have. Frederick was ex-Secret Service, built like a linebacker with eyes that missed nothing. Preston had shown him the evidence of Maureen's staged evidence against Lloyd. I knew something was wrong, Frederick said quietly, but I couldn't prove it. Can you help me? What do you need? Her schedule, her routines, the names of everyone she's close to. Consider it done. Now, 7 days in, the picture was becoming clear. Maureen Wilkerson wasn't just cruel, she was sloppy. Rich enough to never face consequences, arrogant enough to leave trails everywhere. The service workers she'd abused, 11 total, 8 who'd settled with NDAs, 3 who'd been too intimidated to file. Troy had found them all. Lori was interviewing them, carefully, building a pattern. The staged evidence against Lloyd. Preston had metadata, GPS data, credit card receipts. Everything that proved Maureen had been manufacturing a divorce case for years. But the real gold mine was something Preston found on day 5, buried in Maureen's cloud storage. Emails to her therapist. Not a real therapist, Dr. Shelley Boyle, who'd lost her license 3 years ago for ethical violations. She now ran a life coaching practice that catered to wealthy women and charged $500 an hour to tell them they were victims. Maureen's emails to Shelley were a confession of everything. How she'd married Lloyd for his money, how she was so bored with him, how she was building a case to take him for everything in the divorce. But the last email, sent 2 days after the hit and run, made Preston's blood run cold. Dr. B, I hit some loser's car today and left. He filed a police report. Can you believe it? Lloyd is freaking out, but what's he going to do? I have enough dirt on him to ruin his precious reputation. That's the thing these people don't understand. Money isn't power. Leverage is power. And I have all the leverage. Preston read the email 3 times, then started making calls. Chapter 5, The Pressure. You look terrible, Lloyd said when they met for their 3rd secret meeting, this time at Preston's apartment. I've been busy. Preston spread printouts across his coffee table. Your wife is having an affair. Lloyd blinked. What? Jerome Hagan. Runs a hedge fund. Married. 3 kids. They've been meeting at the Cascade Hotel every Thursday for 6 months. Preston slid over photos, not explicit, but damning. Timestamps. Parking garage footage. Credit card receipts in Maureen's name for room service. Lloyd stared at the evidence, his face unreadable. The prenup's infidelity clause. Goes both ways. If she's cheated, she gets nothing in a divorce. The entire prenup becomes void, and you revert to state law, which in Oregon, with proper documentation of her behavior, strongly favors you. Why would she risk this? Because she's arrogant. Because she thinks you're weak. Because she's never faced real consequences. Preston pulled out another folder. But here's where it gets interesting. Jerome Hagan is also being blackmailed. By who? By your wife. She's been recording their encounters. She told him that if he ends the affair, she'll send the recordings to his wife and business partners. Lloyd's expression hardened. That's who she is. She finds what people love and threatens to destroy it. Yes, which means Jerome Hagan is motivated to help us. You talked to him? I did better. I showed him a way out. Preston pulled up a recording on his laptop. Jerome Hagan's voice, shaky but clear. She approached me at a charity event. I was flattered. I'm 20 pounds overweight and losing my hair. A beautiful woman paying attention to me? I was an idiot. But then, after the first time, she showed me the recording. She'd hidden cameras in the hotel room. She said if I ever left her, she'd destroy my family, my business, everything. I'm trapped. He's willing to testify? Lloyd asked. Better. He's willing to flip the script. Preston explained the plan. Jerome would continue the affair, but would wear a wire to their next meeting, provided by Troy, completely legal in Oregon's one-party consent state. Maureen would inevitably brag about her schemes, her leverage over Lloyd, her plans for the divorce. All recorded. And when we have that recording? Lloyd asked. Then we move to phase 2. Lloyd was quiet for a long moment. You've done more in 2 weeks than my lawyers did in 2 years. Your lawyers were playing by the rules. I'm not. What happens to her? After all this? Preston met his eyes. That depends on how far you want me to go. All the way, Lloyd said quietly. I want her to lose everything, the way she's made so many other people lose everything. I want her to understand what it feels like to be powerless, even if it means destroying her family connections, her uncle the senator. Especially that. The Stark family has been trading on their name and connections for generations while looking down on everyone else. If Maureen's their representative, they deserve what's coming. Preston nodded. Then we move forward. But Lloyd, once we start this, there's no going back. It's going to get ugly. It's been ugly for 2 years. I'm ready for it to be finished. 3 days later, Jerome Hagan met Maureen at the Cascade Hotel, wearing a wire so small, it was invisible. The recording was 90 minutes of damning material. Maureen, laughing. Lloyd actually thinks I'm afraid of him. He has no idea I've been planning this for years. By the time I'm done, he'll be lucky to keep one of his companies. Jerome, prompted by coaching from Preston. What about that guy whose car you hit? Maureen, dismissive, some nobody. Lloyd's terrified I'll be sued. But so what? I'll tie him up in legal fees until he gives up. That's what people like him don't understand. Justice goes to whoever can afford to wait. Jerome, what if he doesn't give up? Maureen, then I'll destroy him. I'll have Lloyd evict his little veterans center. I'll make sure he never works in this city again. I've done it before. There was this waitress last year who dared to ask for an apology after I threw a drink in her face. I had my lawyers bury her in paperwork until she withdrew her complaint. These people need to learn their place. Preston listened to the recording 3 times. Then he called Lori Russell. I have something for you, he said. But you need to be ready to publish immediately. How immediately? Tomorrow night. And Lori, this is going to cause an earthquake. You ready for that? Her laugh was fierce. I've been ready for 2 years. Chapter 6, The Cascade. The article went live at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, Maureen's usual time for meeting Jerome. The headline was perfect. Billionaire's wife. A pattern of abuse, blackmail, and contempt. Lori had outdone herself. 11 victims, all named, all with documented evidence. The staged divorce evidence against Lloyd, confirmed by digital forensics experts. The affair with Jerome, including his testimony about being blackmailed. And, most damning, excerpts from Maureen's own emails and the wire recording. Within an hour, it had 50,000 shares. Within 2 hours, local news was covering it. Within 3 hours, Senator Stark's office was declining to comment. Preston watched from his apartment as his phone lit up with messages. But the call he was waiting for came at 8:47 p.m. She's hysterical, Lloyd said. She knows it was Jerome. She's threatening to sue everyone. You, Lori, Jerome, me. She's calling her uncle, her lawyers, everyone she knows. Let her. Every threat she makes now is more evidence. She wants to know how you did this. How you found everything. Preston smiled. Tell her the truth. Tell her that I'm nobody, just like everyone else she's hurt. And that sometimes, nobody is more dangerous than somebody. At 10:15 p.m., Preston's phone rang. Unknown number, but he knew. You bastard. Maureen's voice was raw with rage and tears. You have no idea what you've started. I will bury you. I will destroy everything you've ever. Mrs. Wilkerson, Preston interrupted calmly. I'm recording this call. Would you like to continue making threats? Silence. I didn't think so. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to hold a press conference. You're going to apologize to every person you've hurt. You're going to establish a fund to compensate them, $50,000 each, minimum. You're going to agree to a divorce from Lloyd under terms that give you nothing beyond what you brought to the marriage. And if I don't, then tomorrow, I release phase 2. The evidence of your tax fraud, the offshore accounts you've been hiding from Lloyd and the IRS. The evidence that you've been embezzling from Lloyd's charitable foundation. The evidence that I haven't embezzled anything. No, Preston agreed. But I can make it look like you have. I can create a paper trail so convincing that your own lawyers will believe it. And by the time you prove your innocence, if you can, you'll have spent millions in legal fees and years in court. He paused. Or you can apologize and walk away with your freedom. Your choice. My uncle will. Your uncle is already distancing himself from you. I made sure of that. I sent him a preview of tomorrow's phase 2 evidence an hour ago. He's not returning your calls, is he? Another silence. 24 hours, Mrs. Wilkerson. Press conference, apology, compensation, divorce. Or I burn down everything you've ever cared about. He hung up. Lloyd called 5 minutes later. Did you really create evidence of embezzlement? No, but she doesn't know that. And more importantly, she knows I could. That's the thing about living your life through cruelty and deception. Eventually, you can't tell truth from lies anymore, even about yourself. What if she calls your bluff? Then we move to phase 2 for real. I have enough legitimate evidence to prosecute her for blackmail, fraud, and a dozen other charges. But I'd rather she just disappear from your life. Why? Preston was quiet for a moment. Because I've seen too many good people destroyed by bad ones, Lloyd. And for once, I want to see it go the other way. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. Maureen didn't hold a press conference. Instead, at 3 a.m., she tried to run. Frederick Lang called Preston from PDX Airport. She's here. Checking in for a flight to the Cayman Islands. What do you want me to do? Is Lloyd aware? He's the one who told me to follow her. Preston thought for 3 seconds. Let her board. Then make a call to TSA. What am I reporting? That a person named in a criminal complaint for blackmail and fraud is attempting to flee the country. You're not lying. I filed the complaint an hour ago. Frederick chuckled. This is going to be good. Maureen made it as far as the jetway before TSA pulled her aside. The scene was captured on security cameras. Her screaming, demanding lawyers, dropping her uncle's name. It was all over social media by 6 a.m. By 8 a.m., the Portland police had issued a warrant for her arrest on multiple counts of blackmail. Jerome Hagan's testimony and the wire recording had been enough. By noon, 3 more victims had come forward, 2 more service workers, and, surprisingly, one of Lloyd's business partners. A man named Clark Mayo who'd been pressured by Maureen into giving her insider information about Lloyd's companies, under threat of exposing an affair Clark had had 5 years ago. She collected leverage on everyone around Lloyd. Clark told Lori Russell in an interview. She was building an empire of secrets, and she planned to use it to destroy him. But she made one critical mistake. She assumed that everyone was as afraid as she wanted them to be. By 3 p.m., Senator Stark released a statement. I am deeply troubled by the allegations against my niece. My office will cooperate fully with any investigations. The Stark family does not condone or protect criminal behavior, regardless of family connections. Translation, you're on your own, Maureen. By 5 p.m., Maureen's lawyer, a man named Walter Manning who specialized in defending the wealthy, held his own press conference. My client maintains her innocence and looks forward to her day in court. These allegations are the result of a coordinated smear campaign by her estranged husband and his associates. Mrs. Wilkerson is the real victim here, a woman being punished for refusing to be silenced. Preston watched the press conference from Lloyd's office. He's good. He's $2,000 an hour, Lloyd replied. But he's working with nothing. What's our next move? We wait. The criminal case will take months, maybe years. But we don't need a conviction. We just need her occupied and powerless. And the divorce? File tomorrow. With the infidelity evidence, the blackmail charges pending, and her attempted flight, you'll get an emergency order of protection. She won't be able to come within 500 feet of you or your businesses. Lloyd nodded slowly. I can't believe this is almost over. It's not over yet. She still has resources, connections. She'll fight. Let her. For the first time in 2 years, I'm not afraid of that fight. But Preston was worried. He'd seen Maureen's type before. People who'd rather burn everything down than admit defeat. And she still had one card left to play. Chapter 8. The Counterstrike. The attack came at midnight, 3 days later. Preston's apartment building's fire alarm shrieked to life. He grabbed his go-bag, old habits from his army days, and headed for the stairs. On the ground floor, firefighters were already arriving. But there was no smoke, no flames. False alarm, one of them told the assembled residents. Probably a malfunction. But Preston knew better. While everyone was outside, someone had broken into his apartment. They'd been professional, no obvious signs of entry, nothing obviously missing. But his laptop was in a slightly different position. His filing cabinet had been opened. They were looking for his evidence. Preston pulled out his phone and called Troy. They hit my place. Who? Maureen's people. They're looking for the originals. Do they know about the backups? I don't think so. But we need to move faster. The next attack came the following day. The Veterans Center received notice that their lease would not be renewed. The building owner, a subsidiary of a company owned by one of Maureen's cousins, cited necessary renovations. Preston called Lloyd. She's striking at the center. I'll buy the building. Name your price. That's not the point. She wants to prove she can still hurt me, that she's still powerful. Then what do? We show her she's wrong. Preston spent the next 48 hours orchestrating a media campaign. Lori Russell wrote a follow-up piece. Billionaire's wife retaliates against Veterans Center. The headline alone sparked outrage. Within hours, donations poured in, enough to buy a new building twice over. The mayor tweeted support. The governor made a statement. By the end of the week, the Veterans Center had more funding and visibility than Preston had ever dreamed of. But Maureen wasn't done. On Sunday morning, Preston received a package. No return address. Inside was a single photo, his father's grave, with a note. Everyone you love ends up underground. Remember that. Preston stared at the photo for a long time. It was meant to terrify him, to make him back down. Instead, it crystallized something in his mind. Maureen Wilkerson didn't just need to lose. She needed to understand why she'd lost. He made a call to an old contact from his intelligence days, a woman named Ellen Bass who now worked in white-collar crime for the FBI. I need to ask you a hypothetical question, Preston said. I don't like hypotheticals. If someone had evidence of blackmail, fraud, and witness intimidation, and that person had also fled the country to avoid arrest, what would the FBI's interest level be? Ellen was quiet for a moment. Are we talking about Maureen Wilkerson? Hypothetically. Hypothetically, if someone had federal-level evidence, the FBI would be very interested. Especially if that evidence connected to other crimes, say, wire fraud, extortion across state lines, or conspiracy. And if that evidence existed, then that someone should call me. Today, Preston hung up and opened his encrypted files. He'd been holding back the biggest piece, the offshore accounts Maureen had mentioned. He'd found them in her cloud storage. 3 accounts in the Cayman Islands, 1 in Switzerland, totaling $4.7 million. Money that she'd been systematically moving from Lloyd's accounts over the past 3 years. It wasn't embezzlement in the traditional sense. As Lloyd's wife, she'd had access to their joint accounts. But the offshore accounts were in her name only, hidden from Lloyd, unreported to the IRS. That was federal tax evasion. That was wire fraud. That was the kind of case that could send her to federal prison for a decade. Preston sent the evidence to Ellen Bass. Then he called Lloyd. It's time to end this, Preston said. I need you to make a statement. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. The federal indictment came down 2 weeks later. 12 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of tax evasion, 6 counts of blackmail, 3 counts of witness intimidation. Maureen Wilkerson was arrested at her lawyer's office, still protesting her innocence. Walter Manning, her expensive attorney, looked shaken at the arraignment. Your Honor, my client is not a flight risk. Your client was arrested at an airport attempting to leave the country. The federal prosecutor interrupted. Bail is denied. Maureen spent that night in federal detention. No designer clothes, no special treatment. Just a cell and the beginning of understanding that her old life was over. Lloyd filed for divorce the next day. With the criminal charges pending and the infidelity evidence, it was uncontested. Maureen's lawyers advised her to sign. Fighting would only make the criminal case worse. She got nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, nothing but the clothes she'd been wearing when she was arrested. 3 months later, Preston stood in the parking lot of the Veterans Center's new building, purchased with donated funds, twice the size of the old one, in a better location. Lloyd had insisted on cutting the ribbon at the opening ceremony. "None of this would have happened without you," Lloyd said quietly as they watched veterans and their families stream inside. "You would have found another way." "No, I was paralyzed by fear and self-preservation. You showed me that fighting back was possible." Lloyd paused. "The trial starts next month. The prosecutor thinks Maureen will get 8 to 10 years. How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, relieved. Not because she's suffering, but because she can't hurt anyone else." Lloyd turned to face Preston. "I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. You gave me access and trust. I just used what was already there." "What about Jerome Hagan?" "He's in witness protection until the trial. After that, he'll testify, serve his own sentence for his role in the affair, and hopefully rebuild his life." Preston shrugged. "He made bad choices, but he owned up to them. That's more than Maureen ever did." "And the other victims?" "Compensated. Counseling provided. Most are doing better. Turns out having your abuser face consequences is good therapy." Lloyd nodded. "What about you? What's next?" Preston looked at the center. His center, the thing he'd built from nothing and defended from someone who thought she could destroy it with a phone call and a threat. "This," he said simply, "this is what's next. Helping people who've been told they don't matter. Showing them they do." 6 months later, Preston received a letter. Prison mail from Maureen Wilkerson. He almost threw it away unread. But curiosity won. "Mr. Shea, I'm writing this because my therapist, a real one this time, suggested it might help. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. For years, I told myself that power was something you took, that kindness was weakness, that people existed to be used. I married Lloyd for his money. I treated people like garbage because I could. I threatened you because I thought threats were strength. I was wrong about all of it. In here, nobody cares about my last name or my family connections. I'm just another inmate who made terrible choices. And the thing is, I can't even blame you for putting me here. You just showed everyone who I really was. I did this to myself. I don't know if I can change, but I'm going to try. Not because I think it will reduce my sentence or earn sympathy, but because I'm tired of being the person I was. I hit your car. I threatened you. I tried to destroy your life's work. And you responded by exposing the truth and protecting the innocent. You did what I spent years pretending to do. You actually stood for something. Thank you for that. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to understand it. M.W." Preston read the letter twice, then filed it away. He didn't respond. Maureen Wilkerson was serving her sentence, and that was justice enough. Lloyd stopped by the center that evening, as he did most weeks now. He'd become one of their biggest donors and volunteers. "She wrote to you?" Lloyd asked when Preston mentioned the letter. "Yeah. What did you think?" Preston considered. "I think people can change. But I also think actions have consequences, and she's living hers." "Fair enough." Lloyd handed him a coffee. "I have news. Senator Stark retired. Announced it this morning. Says he wants to spend more time with family." Translation: the family name is too damaged. Exactly. The Stark dynasty is over. All because you refused to let one of them drive away from a hit and run. Preston smiled. All because I asked for an apology and she sent laughing emojis instead. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching through the window as a group therapy session wrapped up inside. Veterans helping veterans, people supporting people. "You know what the best part is?" Lloyd said quietly. "What?" "She thought you were nobody. She thought that meant you didn't matter." He gestured at the center, at all the lives it touched. "Turns out, nobody is exactly who we should all aspire to be." Preston raised his coffee cup in a toast. "To nobodies everywhere." Lloyd clinked his cup against Preston's. "And to the billionaires wise who underestimate them." They drank, and through the window, the center glowed with light and life and second chances, built by a man who'd been rear-ended by a Maserati and refused to accept that injustice was inevitable. Sometimes, Preston reflected, the greatest power isn't money or connections or family names. Sometimes it's just the stubborn refusal to let cruelty win. And that was a power that anyone, even nobody, could wield. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.